What's good, guys? My name is Darius, and I'm back again with the 101. Now, the idea behind the 101 is to help new or returning users understand some of the game mechanics that may have changed or may have been taken out and added in later updates. And as usual, if you guys like any of the content that I put out, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and follow me on my socials, which is down in the description below. Also, there will be resources for this game on the Warframe wiki itself, which will also be down in the description. With all that being said, let's get back into the mix. Now, the last part I explained about the mastery ranks and how to increase your actual mastery rank overall. Naturally, you can do so by mastering weapons and mastering different mechanics in the game, including warframes and the different weapons that you have at your disposal and companions. Now, what I'm going to explain in this video is the missions behind what can help you master those weapons in their entirety. And as usual, there will be resources at the bottom in the description that will link to the missions themselves and the type of missions that they will have. Now, in this game, there's a multitude of missions that you can select from. And across the entire star chart, they have several of them overall. Another way to know which missions is which is you can go into the codex right here. And you can select missions. There are a ton of missions in this game, and each one is different based on the last. Well, not exactly based on the last one, but each one is different based on location and the type of missions they have there in their entirety. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to explain each of these in as much, well, not in as much detail. I'm going to try to make this as quick as I possibly can, as you probably want to get into doing the quests themselves. Anyway, the first mission we're going to talk about is Assassination. Assassination contracts mark high priority targets around the system. Hunt down and eliminate these eliminate these enemies, then head to extraction. This mission involves defeating the bosses of that world. Some planets may have more than one, but in most cases, it's all about trying to kill the actual boss of that sector. In these missions, you can get rare resources or rare parts from the actual mission itself. Assassination is also one of the key areas where you can get Warframe blueprint parts or special weapons or special weapon parts in their entirety. So, whenever you can, do assassination missions whenever you can, as often as you can, as this is one of the key ways you can get the actual Warframe blueprints, well, actual Warframe parts for the blueprints. This is also how I've gotten Excalibur all over again. Also, you can also get an extremely rare resource unique to that planet when killing enemies. You may get one or two resources as well. So, if you have a resource booster, this is the best area to get the stuff in. Capture. The location of an enemy VIP has been discovered. Track them down and then capture them. Watch out, as these enemies would rather run from combat than fight. If they see you, they will run towards the nearest extraction point. Defeat them before they can escape. Once a target is down, press X to capture these targets and teleport them to a waiting holding facility. These missions can either be fast or can be extremely long depending on what type of loadout that you have. But just as the capture mission is, the object is to whittle down the target's HP. Don't worry about whittling it down to nothing, you can't kill them. But once the target is down, when their HP bar or their bar themselves is empty, you can press X to capture them. It will be a bit of a it'll be a bit of a effect when the enemy is captured, but as usual, they don't generally die. So naturally, after you capture the target, you can immediately leave the mission. You don't have to stick around. But all in all, these missions are great if you want to capture the enemy and just move. Defense. Defend an important target against waves of enemy units. If the defense target is destroyed, the mission automatically fails. Every 5 waves, choose to stay and fight or extract from the mission. Now, this mission is bog standard. If you played any defense style mission in any video game, naturally the idea is to make sure you defend the target as much as you possibly can. In this game, it's slightly different, but it has the same function. You have a singular target in a certain area. Sometimes the target may be a physical, maybe somebody physical that you have to defend at all times. In other words, a mobile target. In some missions, the target may move from one area to the next, and you need to make sure that you're following the target as close as you possibly can, so you don't lose the mission itself or fail it. So the idea behind defense is that when you do these, make sure you have a decent loadout, and make sure you have the right gear with you on said mission. This is a great area for defensive warframes such as Rhino, Frost, Gara, etc. As these guys can either put up walls or they can stun enemies almost indefinitely to where they won't attack the target itself. But as usual, if the target dies or if the target is destroyed, the mission is failed. Now, every 5 waves, you would get an item. It could be anything such as credits, resources, relic packs, a relic, or you can get a specific mod. But every 5 waves, the enemies get much tougher and much more damaging as time goes on. So in this, if you choose to stay, you have to stick it out for 5 more waves, and then you have another chance to extract. If you choose to do it again, you could do it a 3rd time. But keep in mind, if you don't extract and you fail the mission, you lose all progress and you lose all the items that you would get in that mission. So if you feel you can't do the mission and you feel you can't finish the mission, or you're not kicking out enough damage, or you're going down more and more often, that's a cue to extract. Excavation. At the start of the mission, objective markers will appear showing the location of excavators. Travel to these points and use your power cores to activate the excavators. Defend the excavator until it can unearth what it was looking for. Up to 3 excavators can be activated at the same time. Now, this mission is a combo-like mission. This mission, well, I'll explain it a bit later, is that an excavation is a cross between defense and mobile defense. I know it's weird, but you'll understand as I explain it. An excavation mission, as the description says, you'll have objective markers. So when you go to an objective marker, a drill will automatically drop down into said area and will begin drilling. The driller only starts off with a little bit of energy, and you need those power cores, which this Warframe is carrying, in order to power this drill right here. Every time power runs out, the drill stops, and you need a power core in order to keep the drill active at all times. Much like defense, you have to defend the drill, because if it takes too much damage, it will destroy the drill itself, and you won't receive the item that is unearthed. Now, you get 2 rewards by doing these. The first reward you get is when the drill finishes, you'll naturally get, just like in defense, you can get mods, you can get resources, you can get relics, stuff like that. But the secondary resource you'll get is this resource called cryotic, which is a sort of, think of it as a special form of resource similar to ice, so to speak, but this one is used in a more lucrative way. It's like mobile defense because since you have to defend different areas at different times, it's best to group up around 1 or 2 drills and power them and make sure you're defending them at all times, because you're constantly moving from area to area to area defending these. But don't worry if the drill is destroyed, it's not the end of the mission. In most cases, you have to dig up a certain amount of cryotic in order to finish the mission. In some cases, one excavation is enough to end the mission, and you can go to extraction. In some cases, it's best to stick around, especially in a larger party, and you can continue drilling up more and more resources. But as usual, if the excavators are getting destroyed in a fast manner, or you're going down in a fast manner, that's a good time to leave. But as usual, you need to dig up a certain amount of cryotic in order to extract out of the mission. So that's excavation. Exterminate. Enter the level and kill every enemy you encounter. Leave no one standing. This is the most straightforward mission in the entire game, bar none. The idea behind it is to kill every single enemy you come across indiscriminately. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail with this, but usually when you start a mission, you have a preset amount of enemies you need to kill. Naturally, there are always going to be more enemies than the actual kill count you have when defeating them. So all in all, Exterminate is a mission where you got to defeat a certain amount of enemies and get to extraction. There's really nothing to it. It's literally just that. Extermination missions are the easiest missions since you need to kill everything on the way to extraction. Hijack. Hijack an enemy transport and escort it to extraction. Guard the vehicle from enemies as it moves along a path. In order to make the target move, Tenno must stand next to the cart and use energy from their shields to power it. As the shields drain, the cart will move along the path towards extraction. The more Tenno giving shield power, the faster the transport moves. The transport will lose health over time, so speed is critical to ensuring success. So, hijack missions are kind of like mobile, it's kind of a spin on the mobile defense missions. The idea is to get the object itself by powering it using your shields to make it move. The idea is to get it from A to B as fast as you can. Naturally, since you're using your shields, you're going to have a harder time fighting off against enemies and keeping that thing on the move, because with enemies shooting at you, your shields drain faster. And when your shield is gone, you can't power the machine at all. But in some case, but there's a few Warframes that works around the object in general. In this particular case, Inaros. Since Inaros doesn't have shields no matter what, you can use his health to power and move the object itself. So naturally, the way you fail the mission in this is if the HP value reaches 0 for the weapon itself, or as usual, the mission is failed. So naturally, in order to complete this mission, you have to get it to your drop ship, and you would win automatically. And when you get it to your drop ship, you automatically extract. All in all, this mission can take a while depending on team composition, but all in all, I say if you have a proper team and you have the proper crowd control weapons and abilities, you can finish this mission fairly fast. Hive sabotage. These missions are set in the infested hive. There are 3 major hives around the level. However, each of these are invisible at first. Growing near the hives are 5 tumor nodes that have to be located and destroyed. Once the tumors are all destroyed, the hive will become vulnerable to attacks. After a hive is destroyed, it will activate one of 6 different traps that will trigger for the remainder of the mission. Once all 3 have been destroyed, Tenno will have to reach extraction with 3 traps active. Now, this mission is similar to sabotage, which I will also explain a bit later. Now, hive sabotage is you have a hive in the center, which obviously they explain, which is invincible. And there are 5 tumor nodes close within the area of the hive. Sometimes there are tumor nodes just outside of the range of the hive, which need to be killed. You can tell because they will glow yellow and will have a sort of, they will have a sort of effect around it. Actually, it's this right here. That's a tumor node. In order to make it vulnerable, destroy all 5 tumor nodes and then destroy the hive itself. Now, when they say that one of 6 different traps will activate, it could be various things such as low gravity, magnetic damage, or magnetic spots, maybe even fire that will activate during the mission. But all in all, it's pretty much the same as sabotage, as when you extract, you have to deal with that going to extraction as well. So again, not much to explain since sabotage will also be explained as well. Interception. Use enemy relay stations to intercept and decode important enemy transmissions. Interception missions have 4 relay points. Standing beside these relay stations will begin to capture the point. The enemy will spawn endlessly and attempt to take and hold their own points. When you capture a point, it will start decoding a message. The more points you hold, the faster the decoding will occur. When you fully decode a message, you will have the option of leaving or staying to decode another. The more messages you decode, the tougher the enemies will become. Basically, Interception is this game's multiplayer PvE version of Capture the Hill. Well, King of the Hill, so to speak. Obviously, there's 4 relay points. The more Tenno, or the more Warframes that are on one point, the faster the capture will happen. Naturally, this mission is one of the missions where you will have to split up. In other words, if you have a Warframe that can hold its own, you can easily hold one point. Every time you capture a point, you get 250 affinity or experience. And when you hold all 4 towers, you double that. Now, this mission is simple in its entirety, but doing it alone is actually extremely difficult and can pose a problem if you don't have a squad dedicated to doing interception style missions. But all in all, it's much like how defense missions are. You gotta defend the relay stations from enemies because some enemies will activate an alarm that will bring more enemies in. And since enemies endlessly spawn, this can also help when farming certain resources, but it's not very good in terms of just running around spreading out, because after a while, if you're away from a relay station and enough enemies surround you, enemies themselves will capture the relay station in its entirety. But all in all, this is basically a PvE multiplayer King of the Hill style mission. So if you play King of the Hill, you understand Interception and you understand what it is. Invasion. The Corpus and Grineer are fighting for control of this planet. Choose one faction to represent in the conflict. Your faction will fight with you as you exterminate enemy forces. This mission can be repeated until one faction has completely taken control. If enough missions for the same faction are completed, they may see fit to grant you battle pay. Battle pay can only be earned for a single faction. Information for progress for the conflict can be found on the star chart. Once a faction wins enough battles, the conflict will end. Now, Invasion is basically exterminate. Well, I guess you could say that in this particular case, it's like you have to perform 3 different missions for one faction. And actually, I'll just explain it right now. Just like in the star chart, when you go to this icon right here, you'll see a list of invasions. Each invasion you have right here dictates what each faction is doing and how well each faction is represented. And this is the construction status for each individual invasion and faction. So naturally, you're going to have Corpus going up against Grineer every single time. So you'll see that right here, you see the balance of power between both Grineer and Corpus. Also down here, you'll see where the actual mission is taking place, and you'll see which 2 sides you'll have, give whichever reward should you do if you decide to represent them. So for example, if I decide to represent the Grineer in the Grineer offensive, I could get the Karak Wraith barrel for the Karak Wraith weapon that I would have. Or if I represent the Corpus, I could get the Snipetron Vandal stock. Now, if I go inside here, you'll see I can select which one I want to support. Now, you'll notice that even though I'm supporting either one, in order for me to qualify for the battle pay, I have to help one side 3 times. So this bar right here will fill, telling me how many times I help that faction. So when I help that faction, 1 bar will be filled. If I help them again, the next bar will be filled. And if I help them once more, this bar will be filled, and I will meet the quota for the battle pay. But mind you, you have to do this 3 times in order to be eligible for battle pay. If you only do it once or twice, you're not eligible for it. But one, but once the, but once this, but once the invasion has been resolved, you will get whichever the offer, the faction that you help represent. So if I help the Grenier, I'll get this. If I help the Corpus, I'll get this. But within help and support them, I'll be able to do either or mission. For example, say I want to help the Corpus. In order for me to help them, I would press the corresponding button, but for that mission, it would be a spy mission. However, if I decide to go with the Grenier, I would help them, but I would perform a sabotage mission. Now, the mission may change at some point during the whole invasion. So, one mission I may be doing sabotage, the next one may be another sabotage, or it may be an exterminate, or it may be a spy mission. It could be any mission, no matter what it is. It could be a defense mission, or it can be a hijack. But in order for me to qualify for it, I have to do one or the other. So, say for example, I do this 3 times with them. If I decide I want to support Corpus, naturally, if this is filled all the way up, if I help the Corpus, I would lose 1 bar of progress over here, lose 1 bar of progress here, and lose another bar of progress right here, and then I would have to do it 3 times for over here. So in that case, the best thing to do is to make sure you do the actual mission for the squad you want to represent. In other words, don't do this. Don't help the Grenier if you want to get the Snipetron Vandal stock. It will not benefit you. You can't help one, fill that progress bar up, and then help the other, and then try to fill that progress bar up. You can only get one or the other, never both. Keep that in mind. Now, back to the missions at hand. Mobile defense. In mobile defense missions, Tenno must find and defend multiple consoles while the Lotus hacks into enemy systems. A data mass will spawn, and the Tenno must carry it to one of the nearby targets. Take the data mass to one of the targets, place it at the console by pressing X, since I'm on Xbox One. Then defend the target. When the timer is completed, pick up the data mass and move to the next target. When all targets have been defended, head to extraction. Before I explain how in defense you have to defend one target from waves of enemies. In this case, in mobile defense, you have a data mass which you have to have with you at all times. You can't forget about it. There was a few times I've seen people forget about the data mass. We couldn't finish the mission, and we was stuck dealing with what we have at the moment. Anyway, in mobile defense, you have to defend consoles in their entirety. So in a sense, it's similar to defense, except with mobile defense, you have to carry the data mass to the next target, and then to the next target, and defend it at all costs. But it's pretty much the same as defense, only in that you don't deal with waves of enemies. You have to do this a total of 3 times, and then you can extract. Again, not much to say about it, but once you play defense, you have a general idea what mobile defense is. Just don't forget the data mass. Recovery. When a Tenno is defeated by the Zanuka Hunter, they are immediately taken to the recovery mission. Tenno will start the level with no weapons or Warframe, and will have to search through the level for their missing gear. With no weapons, Tenno can only use their fists for attacking, so using stealth attacks can be an effective method of taking enemies down. Now, this right here is a special mission that can only be done when you're faced by the Zanuka Hunter and are defeated. When you're defeated by the Zanuka Hunter, you'll be trapped under this net, and when your bleed out timer is done, you'll be taken to a stronghold where you're locked up inside a cell. You have to find your way out by recovering your Warframe, your weapons, and everything that you have. Since the only way to access this mission is to fight the Zanuka and get captured by going down, that's the only way you can start this mission. This is a special mission in that you can't unlock it by any other means outside of being defeated in combat. So even if you're in the squad, you will be separated from your squad and it will count as a solo mission. But nothing much to say about it. It's just that when you do come across the Zanuka Hunter, be sure to take it out as fast as you possibly can and try not to go down. Rescue. A valuable ally has been captured by the enemy. Infiltrate the stronghold and search for the prison. Once there, hack the door and free the prisoner. Be warned, the prison cell has been rigged with a kill switch. If the wardens detect an intrusion, they will start an execution sequence. Failure to rescue the hostage before that sequence finishes will result in their termination. Once the prisoner is free, they will begin to follow the Tenno. Protect them and get them to extraction. Tenno can choose to give the rescue target a weapon to help defend themselves. Walk up to the target and press X to give them your secondary weapon. Now, this mission can be a bit subjective, but I'll try to explain it as best I can. You start off as you normally would, by getting to a certain area deep within the enemy compound. Naturally, the enemy will have sensors and everything around that will detect your presence if you are found. Naturally, you have to find the actual ally who has been captured. Now, the thing about this mission is that the target could be in one of 2 or 3 different cells. If they are not in one cell, they're more than likely in the other one or the other 2. The wardens in the mission can be executed and can be assassinated. So if you assassinate all the wardens, it's pretty much non-existent that the target will be executed. But the idea behind this, and the Lotus says this, to not leave the subject behind. But if you get to the extraction with everybody there, even though you left the target behind, the mission will still be counted as complete. So the idea is to get to extraction as fast as you possibly can. And if you want, kill some of the enemies on the way so they won't get put down. But if a target is downed, it's not the end of the world. If you wake the target up, if you revive the target before their death counter reaches 0, you can continue the mission. But if the death counter reaches 0, you naturally fail the mission. So it's best to get to extraction as fast as you possibly can. Sabotage. Infiltrate the enemy hold and cripple their operation by striking at vulnerable points. The minimap will lead you to the target. Once it has been destroyed, get to extraction as fast as possible. Now, before I explain hive sabotage, this is standard sabotage. Standard sabotage means you have to get to a certain point in the enemy's core, or the enemy hold, as it explains, and destroy the items within. Now, depending on where you are, the type of sabotage may vary, which means you may have to perform more than one thing in order to sabotage the actual object in question. But much like hive sabotage, the idea is to get to the actual sabotage target in general, destroy it, and extract. In some cases, you'll have limited time to get to extraction. Naturally, if you don't get there in time, the mission will be a failure. Getting there in time will enable you to extract safely. But again, nothing much to say about sabotage. It's pretty easy to get into. Spy. This is an espionage mission. Tenno must search through enemy ships and outposts to find data vaults containing crucial intel. The data vaults are guarded by a myriad of security measures, from laser traps to sensor drones. Tenno should attempt to extract the intel without being detected. If the enemy detects any intrusion, Tenno will only have a short time to retrieve the intel before it is destroyed. Most missions will contain multiple data vaults. The number of succeeded extractions required changes by mission. Now, this mission is unique because it's kind of similar to mobile defense, except you're personally going in and taking the data from these different data vaults. Now, as they said, data vaults differ from mission to mission. In most missions, you have to hack 2 data vaults in order to extract. Other special missions, you have to do all 3. Meaning if one gets destroyed, before the data is destroyed, well, which means if the data is destroyed, the mission is an automatic failure, no matter how many you extract. But if you complete it by doing 2 data extracts and the other one gets destroyed, you can still extract. You just won't get the affinity bonus that you normally would. All in all, doing spy missions is lucrative, but I personally don't like them at all like that. Well, not as much. I mean, I do them every now and then if I have to, but spy missions is one of the few missions I don't really enjoy playing, as you have to hack into the machine to get what you need to get. But over time, it slowly grew on me, but I still prefer to do other missions, as spy missions can take a while depending on how you approach it. Survival. The enemy has cut off life support systems. The Lotus is able to drop in small life support reserves periodically. These will be marked on the minimap. To maintain life support, Tenno must activate these as they appear. Enemies themselves have a chance to drop smaller tanks of life support. These will help keep the life support levels up. These will help keep the life support levels up between the larger canister drops. If life support runs out, Tenno will begin to suffocate and take damage. At this point, the only options are extraction or death. The longer a Tenno survive, the more rewards they will receive, but the tougher the enemies will become. This is referred to as an endless mission. This mission only ends when you extract or you die in the middle of the mission. Now, the way this operates is that you have to hack a control panel to make yourself known, and a Tenno operative will begin raiding areas for supplies and other resources. Just like a defense, unlike a defense, like defense, in this, every 5 minutes you get a brand new reward, and in defense you get every 5 waves you get a new reward. Survival, to me, is one of my favorite mission types because you can constantly get items and you can constantly get resources every 5 minutes. If done correctly, you can solo survival for 20 minutes at a time with just yourself. So naturally, this is one of the best missions to go to when you farming different resources. But all in all, when you do survival, it's best to understand how much each life support gives and how much each personal life support items will give you. Smaller life support items will give you 5% life support, while the taller canisters, life support beacons, will give you 30%. Just to let you know, if you're at 100%, you should not be activating life support, the actual huge life support items at all. It's okay to collect the small life support canisters, but try to hold off on using the taller, more lucrative life support items. Because since they restore 30%, you should never be using those unless you're at 70% or below. But even then, try to hold off on using those as much as you possibly can. Otherwise, you're going to be having a harder time maintaining it. Because if you use life support systems at 90%, it's a waste. Don't do that. But all in all, survival is great for doing tons of missions and getting a ton of items, especially when you have a decent loadout and a decent amount of allies that'll help you. Now, we explained all the types of missions in the PvE portion. Now, these missions, this mission right here and this right here, I never done, but they hold true. Tenno pit their prowess and techniques against one another, as 2 teams fight each other in an attempt to capture the opposing team's cephalon while protecting their own. Tenno must make their way into the opposing team's territory and run into the opposing cephalon to capture it. If the opposition defeat the Tenno before they can capture it, the cephalon will be dropped. For a short time, the cephalon will remain where it was dropped and will be returned if an opponent runs over it, or picked up if an ally runs over it. Bringing an opponent's cephalon to your own cephalon will capture it and award your team a point. The first team to gain 3 points, or the team with the highest amount of points when time runs out, wins the match. Basically, cephalon capture is basically capture the flag. If you play capture the flag, this is no different, so I'm not going to go into detail with this one. Annihilation. Fight against 7 other Tenno in this free-for-all arena. Annihilate the Oro by collecting it to gain a point. Beware that if another enemy annihilates the Oro, they will gain a point instead. The tenno with the most points at the end of the match is declared the winner. Annihilation is basically a free-for-all death match. Naturally, you have to annihilate Oro and collect it to gain a point. Naturally, enemies can also kill you as well, so keep that in mind. But other than that, this is basically your basic death match. Team Annihilation. Join 3 teammates and battle against an opposing team of 4 players. Defeating your enemies will cause them to drop an Oro. Either yourself or a teammate can annihilate the Oro by collecting it, granting your team a point. Other enemies can deny your team the point if they are able to annihilate the Oro dropped by the fallen teammate. The team with the most points at the end of the match is declared the winner. Basically, same thing as Annihilation, except this is team deathmatch. Again, same exact thing. Lunaro. Lunaro is an ancient ball sport, once played both as training and recreation by tenno of old. Sun and Moon form teams of up to 3 players. Using an arcada scoop, players try to hurl the ball, known as the Lunaro, through the opposing team's goal. Teams defend their own goal by intercepting the Lunaro when passed or shot at the goal. Lunaro is a contact sport, and players are free to forcefully knock the Lunaro out of another player's arcada. After a goal, the scoring team must leave the opposition's zone before they can take possession of the Lunaro again. Lunaro consists of 2 5-minute periods. The team with the highest score at the end of the second period is declared the winner. Now Lunaro is basically lacrosse, but in this particular case, it's like a cross between lacrosse and racquetball, so to speak. Naturally, you have a goal at one end, but it's also like street ball, basically. Like if you have the ball within the bounds, you have to take it outside to clear the ball, so to speak, and then you can recapture it and then score as usual. But again, this is basically the sport of Warframe in its entirety. Now, last and finally, Railjack. The Railjack is a restored Orokin warship. Captain your own ship by completing the Rising Tide quest or join another player's crew via navigation. Once you have completed the Arcwing quest, your ship can be upgraded and restocked in your clan's dojo's dry dock. Railjack missions take place in deep space against hostile fighters, cruise ships, and platforms. Use the Railjack's multiple weapons and Arcwing mode to complete your objectives. More tools become available as players earn intrinsics, personal skill points that are tied to affinity gains during Railjack missions. The Railjack can be set on fire by enemy attacks, and running out of hull integrity results in a hull breach, which must be sealed to prevent mission failure. Each crew member is given an Omni tool to repair hazards, accessible from the gear wheel. Many features of the Railjack use resources found in space. Craft them into useful payloads using the forge at the back of your ship, either between or during missions. Now, this is a unique mission type that pretty much came out. It came out a while ago, but because of its steep resource use, a lot of players wasn't able to participate and use Railjacks. And over time, earlier this year, DE reduced the amount of resources needed by pretty much 66 to 75% in order to build the Railjacks, because not many people have clans or dojos where they can fully build a Railjack in its entirety. Now, the unique thing about Railjack missions is that the missions are always, you have to destroy a certain number of fighters and defeat a certain amount of cruise ships. And it also has a third mission that you will have to either disable a platform, destroy a radiator, or destroy a sort of platform, or destroy a warship in its entirety. Now, there are certain resources that can only be gotten by performing Railjack missions, but there are some things that you can do in Railjack that you can't do in any other mission. In most cases, Railjack missions are pretty much just destruction style missions where you gotta defeat a certain amount of enemies, a certain amount of warships, and a main objective. In some later portions of the game, you can also aboard special areas that can enable you to get certain items and can yield special resources as well. In these type of missions, you should have at least one or more players join you on the Railjack, because multiple things can happen on the Railjack. You can have two people man the guns. You can have one person out destroying the cruise ships, the actual warships themselves, or you can have somebody doing repairs or restoring resources as well. Now, beyond that, that's pretty much it of all the missions in here. But before I go, I want to explain one more thing. When doing those missions, you also have access to special event or weekly or different types of missions as well. In most cases, you'll have missions called Gift of the Lotus. Gift of the Lotus missions, and they never explained it in the game, is that you'll have missions where the mission is super easy. They're pretty much giving you items that you otherwise would have to grind to get, or you can just get them in general and help overall. You'll also have weekly missions as well for, Maru or Clem. You also have Kuva's Siphon missions as well. You also have Arbitration, which is basically the end game max level missions that you can accept as well. Beyond that, that's pretty much it. So beyond that, every individual mission does various things, and you can do other things as well. So other than that, that's it for me. Appreciate you guys for stopping by, and as usual, be sure to follow me on my socials, which is down in the description, and the resources for this mission will be also in the description down below. Until then, I'll catch you guys later.